And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Starting off with Wednesday morning's flying weather showing VFR here, central interior, back to the southwest coast, actually into the southeastern Bering Sea, as well as areas from about east of Atka all the way up to the Alaska Peninsula. Marginal VFR farther to the west. Zone of marginal VFR up across the Bering Sea here into St. Lawrence Island, Seward Peninsula, and inland, with some IFR along and just south of the Brooks Range. And still starting out with some low conditions here early on across southern Alaska from Bristol Bay into western Prince William Sound. IFR at the next system coming up into the southern southeast coast. And most of that energy will stay down to the south, but some IFR could slide on up north of Petersburg. Marginal VFR to at least Elfin Cove, but Yakutat, maybe Cordova staying VFR. Marginal VFR over the south central Alaska area on down into Iliamna Lake location. Up in the interior, pretty good tomorrow. VFR, some marginal VFR along the Brooks Range. And staying VFR here for the southeastern Bering Sea and the Alaska Peninsula, as well as Kodiak Island, farther west, out toward Adak Way, IFR pushing in. And that advances a little farther to the north and east here for Thursday morning, with marginal VFR to the Alaska Peninsula, but Nunivak Island, southwest coast into Bristol Bay, holding on to some pretty good VFR. Marginal VFR, the Kuskokwim Valley, back to VFR here along the Yukon River, on up to the Brooks Range, running into some more marginal VFR there, as well as the north slope in the western central Arctic coast. For the upper Tanana Valley area, or actually the Tanana Valley down in the Copper River Basin, south central Alaska, Kodiak, VFR. Southeast coast, IFR here, down to the south and over toward the east, with better conditions breaking out along the coast and to the north. And then for the afternoon, solid VFR from Dixon Entrance right across interior Alaska here, all the way up to the North Gulf Coast, come down toward Kodiak Island to get back into some marginal VFR there, but not too bad. IFR just barely making it to Nunivak Island, southwestward across the Pribilofs, and then down to Adak and Atka, out to the Komodorskis, as well as the Alaska Peninsula here. And from there, taking a look at the passes for the Brooks Range, Anatuvik and Atigan, marginal VFR at times throughout the day tomorrow. There we go, going the right direction. Lake Clark and Merrill, occasionally marginal. Rainy, occasional marginal VFR. Windy, though, should be VFR tomorrow, as well as Isabel, Mentasta looking good, VFR. Tanita, marginal VFR expected, and same for Portage, occasionally marginal there. Chilkoot and White, VFR to start, some moisture coming northward with that next system. May go marginal, or conditions may go marginal VFR, especially on the southern entrances of both those passes. And for the freezing levels, 2,000 to 4,000 feet here over the southern southeast coast. Otherwise, at the surface, right along the coastline here, down along the Alaska Peninsula, coming back north of the Pribilof Islands. And from there, taking a look at the icing graphic, we've got with that front pushing northward here, areas of icing, pretty good chance here across the Aleutians to about Nikolsky. There east, though, not much of anything expected. The other zone with the other storm here, area of considerable moderate rime icing coming into the central and southern southeast coast. And moving on to the jet stream here, we've got southwest jet at 33,000 feet, just clipping the southern panhandle. The strongest winds, 130 knots, blowing into British Columbia. Otherwise, out over the central Bering Sea here, west-northwest flow up to 90 knots, diving southeastward across the Alaska Peninsula. And at 9,000 feet, a low-pressure area up west of St. Lawrence Island. Some pretty good southerly winds, 45 to 55 knots with that, and then westerlies 35 to 40 knots there from the western Brooks Range across the Yukon Flats. With this storm here, 50 to 55 knot winds associated with that out to the west. And then the other system here pulling up into the northern panhandle there. Look for 50 to 70 knot winds across the central and southern areas. And with that, or at 3,000 feet, low center a little farther to the south here, with the strongest winds actually to the south across the Queen Charlotte Islands. Otherwise pretty light here through the interior, with high pressure up near the Brooks Range in the Arctic coastal areas. And the low here west of the Seward Peninsula, bringing 45 knot winds across the western Seward Peninsula there. And then a bigger wind field here out of the southeast turning east with a low pressure farther to the south there, anywhere was high as 65 knots blowing in toward Atka Island. And turbulence, look for considerable moderate turbulence here for the entire Aleutian chain tomorrow. Light to isolated moderate pressing in toward the western Alaska Peninsula. Could be a little bumpy up there over the western Seward Peninsula and the Bering Strait. And with the system down here over the Panhandle, quite an area of considerable moderate turbulence associated with that.